Philip Michael Thomas, and welcome to Treasure. In this episode, we're going to examine a fantastic treasure tale told by a man who either discovered the richest gold deposit in the United States or was the most resourceful liar in California. Earl M. Dorr followed a treasure map given to him by two Indians and found what he claimed to be a river of gold flowing through the San Bernardino Mountains of California. Dorr dynamited the entrance so that no one else could find it because he was convinced that another entrance existed, but he was never able to find the other entrance. At this very moment, Kokoweef Peak is being excavated by a syndicate of 3 corporations intent on finding Dorr's river of gold. Stay tuned as we search for the treasure of Kokoweef Peak. Near the eastern border of California, just 65 miles from the glitzy city of Las Vegas, and nestled among the Ivanpah Mountains, is Kokoweef Peak. From the outside, it looks just like any other California mountain. But if Earl Dorr is to be believed, inside runs a river of gold. The people working on Kokoweef Peak believe in Earl Dorr's river of gold, and they all have stories to tell of how they got involved with this project. Larry Hahn, the owner of a war surplus store in nearby Las Vegas, is the backbone of this group of adventurous treasure seekers.
We believe there should be anywhere from $1 billion to $150 billion worth of gold throughout this entire system. In February 1977, a fellow walked into my store here and bought a set of field phones, military field phones, which has a wire between 2 phones. 2 weeks later, he come back and bought another set, and I casually asked him, you must be in the mining business because nobody else buys these but miners underground. He explained not exactly, but went on to explain the lost treasure and the lost river of gold to me. So I went out there and looked it over.
Larry became more and more involved as the months went by. Finally, he made a life-changing decision.
I wanted to make it a lifetime hobby or quest to prove this thing one way or the other.
The people at Kokoweef are all here based on the information contained in a single piece of paper. An affidavit sworn by Earl M. Dorr on November 16, 1934. An entire community has blossomed around this project, all dedicated to proving that Dorr was correct.
Well, many people perhaps think that Dorr was a BSer or whatever, didn't believe his story or whatever. But due to what happened to me and one thing and another that happened over the years, I got convinced that the Dorr story is true, his affidavit is true, and this is probably the 9th or 10th wonder of the world, and we're going on down in and find it, huh?
Caverns. I've always been interested in caverns from a very young age, and the biggest caverns in the world are supposed to be here, and that's why I'm here.
Ralph Lewis is responsible for the day-to-day workings at Kokoweef.
Basically, I believe in the legend. Originally, most people don't realize it stems from an Indian legend. Earl Dorr is supposed to have gotten his maps and information from the Indians.
One version of the Indian legend tells of the Paiute Indians revealing the location of this river of gold to the Spanish conquistadors. The Spanish exploited the Paiutes for their gold. The Indians suffered many indignities and tortures until the Spanish committed sacrilege by desecrating sacred burial grounds. The Indians massacred them and sealed the gold inside the mountain. The story was handed down from medicine man to medicine man, and it was this story that brought the Pysert brothers to the Ivanpah Mountains. They entered the cave and descended through natural caverns for more than a mile. At the bottom of a vast canyon, they discovered a large underground river flowing through the mountains. Along the banks of the river was black sand, rich with placer gold. Accounts vary, but legend has it that the Pyserts took more than 2,000 ounces of gold from the riverbanks. One day, tragedy struck. One of the brothers slipped in the darkness and fell to his death. Tribal custom forbade the other brothers to return to the scene of his death. Hence, they left Kokoweef Peak forever. Many years later, one of the surviving brothers befriended a young, headstrong boy named Earl Dorr. He told young Earl that someday he would be a man and find vast amounts of gold. Dorr never forgot the story told by the old Indian. He attended the Colorado School of Mines and ultimately made his way to the Ivanpah Mountains. Dorr made several trips into the mountain. In May of 1927, he was accompanied by another mining engineer, W.P. Morton. Dorr had already made one trip into the tunnels. By following the signs on the old map, he had found the peak, but he was unprepared for what he found there. A vast network of tunnels spreading out beneath the mountain. So he included Morton in his expedition. They equipped themselves with altimeters, surveying equipment, and climbing gear. For Dorr was determined to find out if the old Indian's story was true. The two men entered the caverns and spent 4 days exploring and mapping the various caves and tunnels. According to Dorr's affidavit, he and Morton descended about 2,000 feet and discovered a canyon that descended another 1,500 feet into the bowels of the mountain. They found the caverns to be divided into many chambers and filled with stalactites and stalagmites. On the floor of the canyon was a flowing river, which they estimated to be about 300 feet wide. Dorr also said that the level of the river rises and falls with the tides. Dorr and Morton carried out about 10 pounds of black sand, a very rich find indeed, value of over $2,000 per cubic yard. The stress of the return through the caverns was apparently too much for Morton. He collapsed and needed Dorr's assistance to reach the outside. Upon emerging from the cave, they encountered two prospectors who helped in getting Morton to the car. Dorr was already starting to get nervous about other people finding his cavern. He was wary of accepting the help of the two men, even though he needed it. Then something happened that sealed the fate of all concerned. Some of the black sand that the men had so laboriously carried from the cavern spilled onto the ground within sight of the two prospectors. Then Earl became truly worried. What if they found his cavern while he was getting the sick Morton to the hospital? It is very likely that Earl Dorr became a murderer that day. Dorr made a decision based on a conclusion he and Morton had made inside the caverns. Dorr was certain that if he had to, he could locate the river by an alternate route. And the legend of the Lost River of Gold was born that day.
He says he did what he did. Nobody knows. He's supposed to have concealed the entrance, you know, to prevent anybody else from having it. If he couldn't have it, nobody else could have it, as far as what his relatives tell us.
He decided to return to the cave and set off 2 explosions to seal the natural entrance. Stories vary as to whether or not the other 2 prospectors were in the cave at the time. After that fateful day, one failure led to another for Dorr. He tried to get financing to work on Kokoweef, but met with ridicule. Finally, he got a mining company interested in his mountain, but they located a zinc deposit and decided to exploit a known quantity. According to Dorr, this mining operation completely ruined the future prospects of reaching the river through the caverns. He claimed that every time the zinc miners set off a charge, that the whole mountain shook and the caverns caved in, blocking more of the natural passages. Today on Kokoweef, this group of modern-day treasure hunters continue to search for Dorr's River of Gold.
Our current project at this point is to do the tunnel that Dorr proposed in 1934. He suggested that before 250 feet below Kokoweef, you would find an ancient water table cave, quite large, quite long. But this would be approximately 300 to 350 feet below our present tunnel on the other side of the mountain. So we came around and actually are going where he suggested in those years. And we're going to drive a little bit deeper than he suggested because, just to be sure.
The mine site buzzes with activity on a daily basis.
Basically, we get going about 7 o'clock in the morning and spend our whole day drilling for as much as 10 hours if we have bad ground. We'll drill 27 to 32 holes, depending on the type of ground, whether it's soft or hard rock. And right now we're drilling about 7 feet and pulling all that rock. So 7 foot a day, because we'd like to be down underneath Kokoweef Cave, you know, by August or so.
If Dorr's affidavit is correct, if there is a large cavern system inside Kokoweef, with the use of infrared imaging equipment, it could possibly be spotted. This equipment was brought to the site by operator Buddy Elman. It is hoped that by using infrared photography, they can spot air escaping from the mountain. So far, efforts to take the infrared equipment above the peak in a helicopter or an airplane have been unsuccessful. It is hoped that today's attempt in a hot air balloon will provide a more stable platform for the equipment.
Unfortunately, right now we've got a lot of high cirrus, alto cirrus clouds, which are real wind indicators, and we've got some cumulomamas over there, which could be really devastating if we were in the air. It's gusting up to 6 miles, 7 miles an hour, and I just don't think we can get it in the air right now.
Even though the weather is a major concern, the balloon crew continues preparation for the launch. It takes a lot of intense work by an expert crew to prepare the balloon for flight. The balloon has to be laid out on the ground. Wind speed and direction checked. Cables attached. Propane tanks checked. Air blown into the balloon and then heated. And all of these are important to the safe functioning of the balloon in the air. Of course, at this point, no one knows if today's efforts will be an experiment in futility. But they continue the preparations anyway. It is difficult to control the balloon while the air heats because it becomes lighter than air and tries to drift away. Meanwhile, it's business as usual at the tunnel.
After we drill the holes, we'll stuff our primers in the back, that is the dynamite with the fuse and whatnot. It's ammonium nitrate. It's kind of like fertilizer. It smells nasty. It's part of why we use the respirators, keep it out of our lungs. And we'll set them off usually with safety fuse, but sometimes we'll use electric detonation. We did today, for instance. It's a little easier to control the time of electric detonation. After we blast it out, we'll spend the next day just mucking it out. Muck is ore that's not valuable. Rocks you throw away. So we'll muck the rocks out with that slusher bucket, and you know, as soon as the tunnel's clean, we'll set it up to drill again.
Back at the balloon site, Buddy Elman explains the infrared system that will be used today.
So this camera is an infrared, completely computerized camera. We feed data into it, like the ambient temperature. We feed in the emissivity of the mountain itself, which is limestone here. We'll feed that emissivity in. And then the computer, if we do locate something, the computer feed out exactly what we have found. And if we punch into this computer that we are shooting copper or we're shooting bronze or brass, and we're not, it will come back and correct us. It will say it's not bronze, it's Evandor, the melting point is so-and-so. So it not only finds it, it corrects it and tells you what it really is. We hope that we'll find 1 or 2 spots that's actually exhausting atmosphere from the mountain. And this will tell us that the mountain is porous, and therefore it would also tell us that it is hollow, because when the tide comes in, this moisture and atmosphere rises.
What we're going to do is use this for a belay, like a mountaineer's belay. And what you can do is tail off the end of the rope here, and you can feed it out. And what I'd like for you to do for tension is to back down the road. Slowly? Yeah. And if it gets, if I hit a big gust or something, and it gets away from you, let it go. You cannot fight it. Okay. Because there's 2.5 tons of air mass there. I'm better just take a pocket knife, cut it.
The decision is made to fly. This is not a typical flight for a hot air balloon. In this instance, the balloon is tethered to the ground to keep it stationary. This will afford maximum stability for the infrared imaging system. But a tethered balloon is trickier to handle in the air than one in free flight. When we see that the pilot is having trouble, the balloon collapses on one side as the wind forces the warm air out. While Roger Derryberry struggles with the balloon, Buddy Ullman is still trying to use his equipment to pick up indications of escaping air from the mountain. Even with all the problems, Buddy is able to get a few shots. The balloon loses the battle with the winds. Air has been forced out of one side, and it cannot be reinflated to prevent a crash landing. Fortunately, Roger is able to control the descent enough so that no one is hurt. The crew rushes to secure the balloon.
I need somebody to untie these top tethers!
Well, our flight was a little rough, but it was productive. And on the camel hump of the second mountain end, the second ridge, we found a pressure extruding from the mountain. Now, we hit a wind shear, and we weren't able to catch this on the computer, but we'll give it another try. And there's definitely something there. We'll have to go up probably and investigate tomorrow.
Tomorrow, weather permitting, we'll be prepped and ready to go, and if we can get in the air, we'll try for additional images.
I'm very disappointed that the balloon wasn't able to stay up in the air for any length of time, but I think by tomorrow morning we'll be able to find a better window, and with a little luck, we should be able to find something more. I think it's going to be the thing that'll find the river for us and prove that we have a big underground cavern there that's breathing.
The winds in this area are notoriously unstable this time of year. It may take several months before the readings can be done accurately. In the meantime, work continues in the tunnels.
There's an element of adventure to it. I like the people here, but basically I believe the river's there, that the caverns exist, and that it's the 8th wonder of the world.
I would like to develop this place. Larry's got a lot of dreams about developing the whole area here, and I would like to be part of it.
One of our pet projects, when we find it, will be to transport people from Las Vegas out to the caverns. The current car count is over 20,000 cars a day, passing within a mile and a half of us. We would like to then develop a huge Disneyland-type operation, golf courses, underground restaurants, theaters. The whole system would be down beneath the surface. And if things are as Dorr described them, within 2 years after finding it, it'll be an inception.
So I don't know whether you call it a vision or what you would call it, but somebody programmed my computer so that I knew where I was going for the rest of my life, huh? And one thing led to another, and that's how I got here, huh? And I'm here, and I'm here to stay, and I'm going on down to the river.
Whatever the outcome of the balloon and infrared experiments, one thing is certain. These people have the tenacity to find Earl Dorr's River of Gold, if it is there to be found. Well, this is one lost treasure whose actual location is known. And if the River of Gold is there, the Crystal Cave Mining Company will find it. And all these years after his death, Earl M. Dorr would be vindicated and would enter the history books as both the world's luckiest and unluckiest treasure hunter. Thanks for joining us. I'm Philip Michael Thomas for Treasure.
Promotional consideration provided by Best Western International, the world's largest independently owned and operated lodging chain.